Sachi. What's going on for you?
Hello. One big thing for me is I just took the LSAT Flex July. And so the biggest thing for me was like my timing, I would say. I probably should have did more prep tests. But also like a big thing for me is like the reading comprehension area because I am like more of a slower reader. So like I don't really know how I can like get to everything at like one time, like or in like 8 minutes, I guess, the whole like section.
I hear you. Okay, so with
Mhm,
regard to the timing, I'll
mhm,
share the same idea I shared before. 8:45, just an average.
mhm.
So 8 minutes, again, there's variation in difficulty. So I wouldn't time individual passages. I would only time them in the context of a full section. Some passages are easier than others. We've covered that already, so let's put that aside. What else could you support with in terms of your approach to reading comprehension? Or to ask it a different way, how do you approach a reading comp passage right now?
Right now I pretty much go through the passage, like reading the passage, and then I kind of like go through the questions and go through whichever one I think is kind of easier to answer first. So normally like the shorter ones, I guess, I kind of go through those first because they are a little easier to me than the more lengthier ones. But that's really it. Like, and also sometimes I feel like I have a little bit of trouble like remembering like certain stuff from the passage as well.
So tell me more about how you approach a passage. When you read it, are you taking notes? What are you looking for?
Mhm.
Are you making any sort of annotations on the passage or on your scratch paper?
Yeah, sometimes I take notes like after each like paragraph that I read, but then sometimes I feel like it kind of takes up too much time or like I'm writing too fast, so I can't really remember. Like, I don't know, like I'll write it down too fast and I don't have enough time, I feel like, so I kind of stop. And so, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what leads you to take notes versus not take notes?
Um, I feel like taking notes will help me remember like more so like each area that I just read because like sometimes it's harder when you're like getting new information in like the next, paragraph and like stuff like that. But it's just more so I feel like it does take up time writing it out.
Yeah, it does. It's a trade off.
Yeah.
I want to ask you more specifically, though. You said there are some times where you take notes, and then there are other times where you don't take notes. So I'm wondering what
Mhm.
is involved in making that decision for different passages.
Um, if I feel like the area that I'm taking notes on, like normally I feel like that area is like more like important. I guess it's more like the main idea of like the passage. So that's where I'll like normally write it down.
Okay, I hear you. And how long do you spend on
Mhm.
taking these notes? And how long do you spend on your initial read?
I'm not really sure how long I take on the notes per se, but like reading it, I'll say it'll take me like anywhere from like three, pushing like 4 minutes just for like reading it. Yeah.
Okay. And then do you find that it becomes a bit of a time crunch with the questions? I heard from you that you were kind of running out of time.
Yeah, I do. I feel like I definitely like run out of time by the time I get to the questions and things of that sort.
Okay. Are there ever situations where you feel like there was some time that you used on that initial read through or note taking that didn't end up serving you?
Yes.
Okay. So what areas might that be?
Sometimes like when I write stuff down, I feel like it might not have been as important as I thought it was. And so sometimes when I get to the actual questions, like sometimes I might think the main point, for example, like I might think the main point or the main purpose of the passage really was like I thought it was that, but it really wasn't. And so like that was kind of like what I wrote down. And then I go back to the questions and I noticed I was kind of off. And so it seems like it was a waste of time basically.
And so do you feel like you start to get a sense of when that note taking doesn't serve you?
Yeah, when I get to the questions normally.
I guess what I'm asking more is, do you feel like through this process, you could
Mhm.
learn what sort of note taking serves your understanding and what sort of note taking does not serve your understanding? So
I
you can
guess
develop an
like
intuition for it.
I guess like if I do it more, then I can figure it out. Because I do know like I didn't really focus on reading comprehension as much because I kind of like felt like at first, well, like I read all the time, so it's like it wouldn't be like where I needed to focus on as much. So I really focused more on like logical reasoning and logic games. But then later on, like when I started like going through it, I noticed that I'm kind of like struggling there the most.
Yeah. And when are you taking the LSAT?
Well, I just took it in July, so I was planning on taking it again in like maybe October or November to give me more time to really like prepare again and hopefully be the last time I'll take it.
Yeah. So you've got some time to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going for October, you've got over 2 months. So I would be thinking about developing a consistent note-taking strategy as well as a consistent approach and an idea of where to allocate time and what to look for. Reading comprehension is more personal than any other section of the exam because you've been reading your whole life. You've been reading in different contexts. You've done reading comprehension on perhaps the SAT or the ACT or other standardized exams, or even simply in high school and college. A lot of it's a lot of reading comp. So not just one strategy will work for every single student. I typically find those who do the best on reading comp tend to mark and write down very little or not at all. So I would tend towards less, but it could serve you to write down something.
Okay.
So I'd suggest do a handful of passages one way, a handful of passages the other way, meaning do a handful where you write down nothing at all. Do a handful where you take some minimal notes. Do a handful where you use the annotation tools, clunky as they are, like the highlighting and the underlining on the digital LSAT site on LawHub, for example, and see what feels the best for you and what gets you the highest accuracy rate. So I'm not going to simply just give you the answer like this is the way to go about it. I'm going to suggest experimentation and then seeing what works in the end.
Okay.
There are a couple of drills I'll recommend for you. One is read a passage, take some notes, and then attempt the questions using only your notes and your memory. This is obviously not realistic. You will be able to go back to the passage on test day, but as an exercise, how would you engage with the passage differently if you weren't going to be able to go back to it? How would you read differently? And still take only a reasonable amount of time on that initial read. Obviously, with this drill, this is untimed. You might take 20 minutes on a passage versus that theoretical average of 8:45 that you should never actually hold yourself to. Maybe it takes 20 minutes, maybe you take 30 minutes, but as an exercise, you're really digging into the depths of your memory. I talked to Jackie about this in the logic games context. Could apply differently here. But again, just a place to play around. You could also take some simple summaries, use only your summaries. You could take more detailed notes and use only those notes. You could aim to simply read for the main idea and knock out those questions. All the general global nature questions.
All right. And I have one more question. So like, since I did like just take it and I already kind of know like it's not the score that I wanted to still start on like my application, like whole application process. So that way when I take it the next time, I'll pretty much have everything, like my letters of recommendations, everything. So I've been kind of like thinking about what I want to do for my personal statement. And I just wanted to know, does it really have to be towards like why you want to be a lawyer? Or can it be like on something else, on like more so like how you've grown as a person, I would say? Or does it have to be like law related?
It's both of those are totally fine. It's a personal statement. Why law school is obviously a good thing to talk about. Getting personal, sharing your story, also a good thing to talk about. I go into this a lot more in the personal statement workshops. I published 2 of them on the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel under the law school admissions playlist. They're each over an hour. We go through real personal statements. I share some general thoughts on personal statements as well. So I would refer you there to go deeper on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Amarachi. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.